Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans. This is Paul Carruthers, and this is Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. It's MotoAmerica's weekly podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Sean Bice. He's out in Ohio. I'm in Southern California, as is today's guest. Sean, how are you this week?
Well, man, Paul, I don't know if I'm as good as you because you're coming off being a jet setter. I got to bring this up. Listen, I watched that show, The White Lotus, about these people that stay at these resorts, and I'm like, that's Paul. That's what Paul did last week. So you got to tell us. I mean, it was amazing, right?
Oh, it was over the top amazing. It's like I've been to a lot of nice places in my life, but this is taking the cake. You know, it's funny because a lot of the nice places I've been have been through when I worked at Cycle News, and you know, back when motorcycle manufacturers were rolling in money, they would take us all kinds of cool places, and we'd get to ride the new bikes, whether that be at the track or on the street or what have you. And it's funny because I got a message from Randy Skaisbrook from Cycle News, and he'd been to that resort with Indian, introduced like their FTR or something there in Mexico. So no, it was an amazing place, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But you know what it's like, you got to get back to work to get some rest after a vacation. After a vacation like that. But no, it was beautiful, and I highly recommend it. But it did feel, you know, it was a bit pricey, and it had that feel to it. But yeah, and it was unmatched.
And for the listeners, I gotta mention this. At one point during the week, a couple days ago, Paul was communicating with us and telling us, well, he went up for a horseback ride on the beach, and then he went to a spa and had a steam and a sauna and a massage, and I'm sure an adult beverage or two. So that one day alone was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was a pretty good day. I mean, I'm not a big horse fan, but once I got going, it was okay. And honestly, I'd never had a spa day either. So I took care of two things I had never done much of before, and did it all in one day. So yeah, it was cool. And you know, it's funny because you know, I missed that test that they had at Buttonwillow.
Yeah,
and it just seemed really funny to me. I mean, not funny, but just kind of strange. It was like, I was like, gosh, I sure wish I was Buttonwillow. And then I thought about it, you know, for 5 more seconds and said, no, you don't.
yeah, exactly.
So where I was completely different than Buttonwillow.
So before we get started with talking to our guest, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, and I hope you don't mind me giving away where it kind of sounds like you were, but did you run into Sammy Hagar at all?
I did not.
Okay.
No, I probably ran into some of the stuff he makes, but I didn't run into him personally. But yeah, I was in Cabo San Lucas, so
Cabo Wabo.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
All right, well, let's get into today's guest. I'm gonna butcher his name because I tend to butcher names anyways, but this one's really butcherable, if that's a word. But our guest today is Anthony's Leatherworks owner, Greg Sermabeikian. He said he told us earlier that his wife can't even pronounce his last name, so I can't get in too much trouble for that. But Greg is the owner of Anthony's Leatherworks. It's kind of cool, Sean. You probably can't even picture it because it's so different, but he's about 15-20 minutes north of me in this little ritzy beach town called Corona del Mar. And that's obviously in Southern California. And he's got this little old shop that's been there for, I think, something like 70 years. And it started out as shoe repair, which they still do. But for our conversation, Greg and his crew there do all sorts of stuff with leathers, you know, road racing leathers, repair, alterations, refinishing, crash damage. In other words, if you go to a track day next week and you happen to be unfortunate enough to crash your bike, your leathers don't have to continue to look like crap for the rest of the riding season. You take them to him and they come back looking like new. So it's kind of it's a cool little shop. It's right on the main road. I guess it's actually PCH, but it looks like, like here, I don't know, my grandfather had like a machine shop, and it was like full of old little stuff and busy work, and it just had that cool kind of like Geppetto, who was Pinocchio's father, except Pinocchio's father obviously dealt with wood, or he would have been made of leather. But that's kind of what Anthony's looks like, and it's got these, there's a bunch of little, they're almost like artists in there, the way they work, and they're working on these little machines, and they're fixing everything from ladies' shoes to, like I mentioned before, motocross boots and road race leathers. So I think Greg will be an interesting guest. I've obviously spent some time with him. I've been to the shop and visited and walked away just scratching my head going, wow, that's pretty cool, because a lot of people just don't know things like that exist. So Greg, welcome to the show. I hope my intro was pretty much accurate.
Very good. You did a great job explaining. I mean, you didn't explain that we're only 2 blocks away from the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yes.
So you can't get a better life. I mean, we have lunch, we go to the beach. It's great.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you afford to pay the rent, or do you own the building?
No, you figured we would own the building. No, well, because we've been established there for like almost 70 years. The shoe repair was doing good back then,
Mm-hmm.
and was able to afford the rent. But then when shoe repair went down, like 10 years ago, especially after COVID, in the last couple of years, we had to find another cash cow. So we went into the motorcycle repair business. But the thing is, if we didn't have the shoe repair, I probably would not be there. I probably would want to be somewhere in Newport Beach next to like Ducati or Dainese.
Right. Now, I was going to ask you, the shoe business, I mean, it's obviously in an affluent neighborhood that you're in. Do rich people fix their shoes or just buy new ones?
It's funny. It's funny. I don't know if I'm going to get killed by saying this, but it's funny how the rich people are more stingy with their money than the poorer people.
Yeah, that's why they're rich.
Yeah. It's funny when someone comes in and haggles on price or whatever, you look outside and you see they're driving a Rolls Royce or something. But when they don't argue about price, they're driving a Volkswagen. So
yeah, well, there you go.
You go figure. But still, like I said, as long as we're providing for the community, because we've been there so long and we're not losing money, we'll probably still stay there. But if those circumstances change, you're right. There'd be no reason for my leather repair business to be located 2 blocks from the ocean.
Right. But that's just the kind of place you hope never goes away, because little towns like that, some of the appeal is little old shops like yours. So exactly. I'll join you in hoping it doesn't go anywhere soon. But
thank you,
Sean, I know you've got some questions because you haven't seen the establishment. You're probably not totally sure what they do. So have at it.
Yeah, it's funny. My communication with Greg, and Greg knows this, is I kind of keep track of what's going on in our inbox on Facebook, and I'll get a message from him every once in a while about co-hosting the events. So I want to talk about that to start with, Greg. So you have a setup where riders can bring their leathers, and basically they're collected and brought back to your shop, repaired, I think, for as soon as the next round, or if possible. But tell us about that program that you have going with MotoAmerica. Just start out by saying something about that.
Yeah. So Sean, the problem was that, we have such an acclaim, especially because of MotoAmerica too. But the thing hurting us was the geography. Okay, people sending their suits in from the East Coast and paying the money, shipping back and forth, and the time constraints, it caused a problem. So we figured, now that we're MotoAmerica, you guys do 9 races a year all around the country, we could set a drop-off center so when people come to the races, they could drop off their suits. Okay, fine, we can't repair them at the location, but at least they could drop them off, and they don't have to worry about shipping, and it comes to me, and I take care of it either by the next race for the affluent racers or soon thereafter for the regular consumer.
Mm-hmm. So the repairs, there's a lot we can get into on this. And as Paul said, I mean, I have a ton of questions, but one of the things, let's start out by talking about the repairs, and then I want to kind of talk about some other things that you do. But regarding repairs, you've probably seen all kinds of stuff. I mean, I remember a few years ago, Jason Madama in our Twins Cup class completely blew the whole front of his suit open, kind of like what MotoGP guy. Sorry, Paul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the heck is the
What's wrong with this? He's a French former world champion.
like Fabio Quartararo? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. But anyway, yeah, blew his suit open and actually, abraded his chest a little bit because he didn't have a chest protector on. So I'm sure you've seen all kinds of stuff from seam split to tears. Is there talk about those kind of repairs you do. And really along that lines, is there anything you can't fix?
Well, first of all, going on a more comical note on that too, the biggest thing I've seen was the knee. You got your knee pucks, okay? The knee puck not only got destroyed, not the Velcro got destroyed, but the whole leather. You could see your knee, okay? And I'm like, man, did you break your kneecap? I mean, the whole thing was exposed,
Wow.
And I've seen how these guys ride. I mean, that protection is very important, But to go with that answer, there are some things, anything can be repaired, but the problem is two things. To what cost is it going to be? Okay. And how is it going to affect the suit when it's repaired? Okay. There are some repairs that you could do that if you don't do it properly, it's going to affect the mechanics of the suit in general. And it's going to cost too much money to take a whole suit apart. So sometimes you could just call it a wash. It's not worth it. Okay. But the only time I've seen that is when a guy ruined the entire suit. For example, this guy in the track day, I don't know what the heck he was doing. He got his suit dirty, so he doused it with gasoline. Okay. Yeah, it smelled horrendous. The whole store smelled for 2 days. Anyway, because he did that, his whole bottom of his leg below his knee on the right side was as like cardboard. It could not be saved. So we had to rebuild the whole knee. Okay. But so let's say that happened to like 50% of the suit, it probably would be garbage. Okay. But because it was one limb, it wasn't as expensive as a repair to do that. And by the way, to this day, now that it's fixed, you wouldn't even know it got damaged. I mean, my guy cleaned it so well, you couldn't even tell it got screwed up, But
that's amazing. And you have seams rip out, you have zippers. What happens when you have abrasions on the leather? You basically turn what is, I suppose, I don't know what you call leather that's not suede, but leather that's suede is like split. So the section of the leather is turned into suede. What do? You have to replace that entire section? How does that work?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have two choices. One is you just try to sand it down the best you can and just dye over it, okay? Because when you put the dye over it, it becomes more glossy anyway, okay? So it doesn't feel as suede-ish anymore. But if the integrity is so destroyed that you could it feels like tissue paper, yeah, then you'll have to replace the panel. Because you can't, the whole point of what we do is we don't want to ruin the integrity. Okay. Yeah. You want to look good, but if it's going to look good and it's not going to be strong enough, then it's not worth anything, So either we, if it's not that bad, we add panel underneath to give it more support, because most suits have different layers. So we add a layer underneath and the top looks a little abrased and people move on in life. Okay. But if people, say I can't afford to have it abrased because it's got to look like brand new, then we have to change the panel. It depends on each person's thing. But regardless of that, we make sure that it's got integrity.
So the other part about this too, Greg, is over time, it seems like at one time a leather racing suit was cowhide, but now you don't know what it is. I'm sure you do, but we see stuff like it's made of kangaroo or it's made of cowhide. I don't know what other animal leathers are used, but how many different types of animal hides are used in making leathers, and is there any that you favor over any others?
Well, the two biggest ones are cowhide and kangaroo. Okay. Kangaroo, the characteristics of kangaroo are they're more pliable. Okay. They stretch over time. they're thinner, okay, but the problem with that is it's not as durable, okay, sometimes because it's thinner, okay, and the challenges with kangaroo are if somebody needs it re-dyed, that's a very difficult process because kangaroo has a coating over it. So if you try to dye it a different color, you have to do some other steps before you apply the dye on it, like you would a cowhide. So kangaroo does present a little challenges for re-dyeing or stuff, but for repair, no, because we have kangaroo anyway. We have kangaroo material. So if we have to replace or repatch, we do with kangaroo.
You would think kangaroo would be more durable because kangaroos are going to have higher speed crashes than cows, right?
Okay, if you want to go with that logic, yeah, but in all seriousness, you're right on that. But I've seen a lot of kangaroo that just didn't hold up,
right,
as it should. I mean, they loved it. It felt great when they wear it. They put it on. It's nice and comfortable, but because cowhide's thicker, so it can handle. I mean, there might be some manufacturers that make better kangaroo than others. I don't know, because the only kangaroo I have is from Dainese.
Right. Okay. It must be. It's a lot more expensive because I know like the top level MotoGP guys all have it, but I think like in MotoAmerica maybe there's just a few guys that get them. You know what I mean? It's like so there's got to be a lot more expense there for the leather manufacturer than obviously going with cow.
Yeah, and that's true. And don't forget, kangaroo is illegal anyway in America.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the fact that we get it is because Dainese is an Italian company.
Right.
Okay. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. Because you can't. You don't see many. I haven't seen a kangaroo suit made in the United States.
Okay.
Okay. They're all made, and like I said, the only kangaroo material I have is from Dainese because I have a relationship with them,
right.
Because everybody asks, I have a kangaroo suit. If you go repair it, I want kangaroo, but I know you can't get that. Yeah, I can get it. Oh, wow, and they get excited,
So Greg, what happens in a situation where, okay, we've got repair stuff and there's a bunch of stuff we can talk to about that, and I still have to ask you other questions about that. So, but I want to ask you, I'm an off the rack guy about everything. I mean, if they don't have it in my size, I don't get it. So, or I get it and, take it in and I'm talking about, pants or whatever, but I don't take too much stuff in unless I want, I really like the thing and I spent some money on it. What happens with it? Suits people buy off the rack suits all the time that don't fit, right? What do you do in a case like that? Bigger when it's too big, too small? I know the old adage, Paul knows this, these riders that would jump in lie in a bathtub basically to make their leathers fit them. What do you do in a case like that? Can you alter a suit?
Not only the bathtub thing, what people do, they say, do you have a stretcher that can stretch it? I'm like, oh, really? But no, the thing is, we alter suits every day. Okay, people buy off the rack suits every day and there's a problem. Okay, most of your problems are either your knees are not in the right place, your elbows are in the right place, it's too long at the ankle or the wrist, or your chest is too big or small, or something's wrong with your thighs, so you can't maneuver from side to side properly. Okay, or your shoulders, you can't maneuver from side to side. That's common in any suit. Okay, and we could alter them. But the misconception people have is they think that they should buy a bigger suit, and if they buy a bigger suit that fits their chest, all we have to alter is every limb to make it tighter again, which is not a good thing, because the more I have to alter, the more it's going to cost and the more incisions I have to make. So what I tell people is, if you find a suit that you can't put on your chest well, but every else feels fine, buy that one. At least that way I only have to add to the chest and I don't have to touch anything else. So so the basic rule is find a suit that requires the minimal amount of alterations, no matter what, big or small. Okay, and there's been the only things we don't like doing are but we do it are alterations on custom suits. okay? Because custom suits, they're made for you. So if we alter something, it changes the characteristics of the area around it because it was made for you that way. And now you're asking me to alter one section, you know? So I like custom suits too. It just brings a different challenge, you know? So, yeah, it's like every day we do alteration. It's common.
You know, it's interesting with the the changes in leather suits, not only in the material, you mentioned kangaroo versus cowhide, but even things like, you know, a couple decades ago or 3 decades ago, riders would wear suits and their sponsors logos were literally patches sewn on their suits. And a lot of times they would almost sew like a clear PVC cover to keep the patch waterproof because it was cloth.
Yeah.
It's amazing how over time, a lot of these logos, they talk about being sublimated, which I assume means somehow screen printed or dyed into the leather. And I'm sure, and then there are patches that people put on that are not sewn on now. They're like adhesive or something like that.
Velcro.
Can you explain all that stuff about like how that's changed over time?
Yeah, well, you know, the thing with the suits that are embossed into the leather, screen printed, okay? I mean, not only the logo, you have designs now on suits. You know, they put checker marks and this and that on the suit. It looks beautiful. I got a bison suit in a few days ago that it looked amazing. It's beautiful, but I'm looking, I'm like, man, if you crash, it's gone. You can't recover from that. Okay, the only way to recover from that is they have to the manufacturer has to remake the panel for that pattern again. Okay, which I've done for Mythos. Guy had a nice suit that looked like a farmer. Okay, and it was beautiful when he puts on. It looked like a farmer, but unfortunately he crashed, so we had to get the panels from Italy to redo that. Okay, so it's nice, but the problem is you can't recover from that. Alpine Star is a prime example. Their logo, Alpine Star, is imprinted in the suit. Okay, if it gets damaged, all I could do is dye over it. Yeah, there are companies that could screen print directly onto the leather, but it doesn't hold that well. Okay, it doesn't hold up well. Like with Dainese has raised letters. So if it mess up, I could do it again. Now for logos, it's funny you say that because logos, they're sit shun. But now with the advent of the Tech 10 air suits from Alpine Star, if you've seen the new Alpine Star suits, they have more stretch panel. Okay, and I'm working with Revit right now because Revit is doing something like that, but they're afraid to sew the Dunlop patches on the top because they think it's going to compromise the stretch panel. So when the Tech 10 goes off, it's not going to give enough room. So we're trying to figure ways of adhesing the Dunlop patches onto the top without compromising the thing. So yeah, you're right. In today's world, with the technology coming on board, it's presenting new challenges of how to satisfy the requirements of MotoAmerica while still maintaining the functionality of what the manufacturer intended for the suit. You know?
Yeah, it's really changed over time. And you mentioned about the stretch panels. That's something else I was going to say. It seems like now, I mean, this is an exaggeration, I'm sure, but it seems like now the suits have almost less leather or kangaroo, well, I guess you can call it leather regardless of what it is, less leather than they used to because there's more areas on the sides, under the arms, you know, where it's stretchy material. And I understand why, because you need that movement. And also that's not a high impact area or a high abrasion area. But it is interesting that it's kind of almost like less leather. Have you found that to be the case?
Yeah, I do. But, you know, the way to combat that, and some manufacturers do it, instead of stretch panel, they put accordion. Okay, just clarify the difference between accordion and stretch panel. Accordion is leather in an accordion format, okay, where stretch panel is just the fabric material. So if you could put accordion, that probably in areas that you think it could be contentious to your riding, it's better to do accordion than stretch panel, because then if you get hurt, the accordion is going to last a lot longer than the stretch panel. Okay, case in point, we're doing a AGV suit, old one, that he wants to put the Tech 10 airbag in. Okay, Heath from Alpine Star was laughing when he heard about it. He said, "How this suit had no accordion and stretch panels whatsoever." Okay, so we put stretch panel in the areas, but then the customer realized, and I don't know why we didn't realize it, realized that, wait a second, you put stretch panel in areas that I'm afraid that if I fall, it's going to hurt. I understand why you did it, but it's so, and we ended up putting accordion, and now everybody's happy because now he feels that now I have the durability. It still gives for the airbag, and it's strong enough that if I fall, I'm fine. So that's you gotta outweigh everything, you know.
Does so this back to this thing I mentioned about it used to be more sewn on patches. Now it's adhesive patches or it's sublimated, printed, screen printed into the leather. I always wondered if when they sew on a patch, and yeah, I know you still do this for sponsors, does that at all compromise the integrity of the leather?
Well, no, not the leather. Like I said, the concern is the the stretch pack. Okay. You know, because the sad part is, I remember when you put the Dunlop patches on your shoulder, okay, it was mostly all leather. Now they're putting half leather, half stretch panel. So now you're in a situation, how am I going to sew those Dunlop patches on without ruining the stretch panel so it still moves, you know? So that's what we're working on now. I mean, you have Velcro option where you could just do little sew marks on one end and the other end and leave the middle empty, okay, which we're trying, and we're seeing how fast you could ride before it may fall off, okay? But adhesing, yeah, I've had people glue it on, okay? People use like hot glue, okay, at the track when they're in a rush, okay? It works, but it hurts us, it destroys the leather underneath it. You know, unless you don't really care that much, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
But hot glue, it holds to a point, you know, but eventually dries out. Okay, then it's going to come off. So stitching or like you said, what do you call it? Screen printing are the best option, you know. But like I said, screen printing will only last until you have your first accident, you know, and then you got to figure out what to do from there.
All right, I have another question. Have you ever fixed anybody's shoes who were famous?
Oh boy.
Come on, just say John Wayne's boots or something.
Well, no. Okay, Anthony's, yes. Back in the since we're from 1948, back then they did fix John Wayne shoes a lot. Okay, there was a lot of high-end actors who would come in to the store back then. But recently, no. I mean, you know, in LA, there's a lot of that, but in Orange County, we haven't had that many. I mean, racers, yes, but shoes, no.
Now, also, like when the, like, let's say a Jake Gagne, for example, he crashes and his Alpine Star suit gets damaged. Is that a fixed job that, I mean, they send that back to the factory? Do they fix that, or does he just constantly getting new ones?
Okay, here's the thing. So Josh, you know, he got in an accident the last race, right?
Right.
During practice. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. He had a Tai Chi suit. When I was in New Jersey,
oh, Hayes, you're talking about, Greg, Josh Hayes.
Huh?
You said Tai Chi. That's Josh Hayes, right?
Yeah, Josh Hayes, exactly.
Yeah, at Barber. You're talking about his crash at Barber. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So back in New Jersey, before that, they gave me a suit, his Tai Chi suit to fix, right? We totally redid it. The only reason we did it is because you're right. They get suits automatically, but in mid-season, what are you going to do? You got to fix it. Okay. So I'll get the racer suits mid-season, but after the season goes, they'll probably end up getting a new suit anyway. Okay. So Josh, for example, that was a sad situation because we fixed a suit and I was so excited because I put my logo on the suit, which I have on many of your racers, but he's a podium racer. So I was so excited to get my logo on a podium, right?
Right.
So we fixed the suit. Yeah, beautiful. I was working with Audrey from Liberty, you know, to do it. And we got there and we find out that he had an accident before he even got the suit on. Okay. So I mean, I heard he's doing okay now.
Yeah, he's doing well. What the other thing is, like, okay, let's say I live in Atlanta and I crash in a couple of weeks before the MotoAmerica race. So I bring my suit to Road Atlanta. I hand it off to wherever it is that I go. Sometimes I think it's in the tech area or whatever. And I go on my merry way. Now, I know it would depend on the amount of damage, but how quickly are you able to? I mean, I it would obviously depend on how much business you have, but reasonable, what's the length of time that I could expect to get my leathers back?
Well, okay, like it with Josh. Josh was what was the race? 2 weeks later?
Yeah,
Between New Jersey and Barbara was 2 weeks, right?
right.
Yeah, so it took 4 days to get it to me, and then I had to finish it in 5-6 days, and then I had the next day overnight it. Okay, so I mean, there's ways of doing it.
Right, but I'm not Josh Hayes, so are you going to put me on the back burner or what?
No. If you require it, I mean, look, the way I tell people is, if you're a regular rider, I say, listen, if you have to have it for the next race because you just want to have it, you're gonna have to pay overnight shipping. Okay. Right. But if you could afford to wait a little while, for at least another week or so, we could send a regular mail. Okay. The basic thing is, I could do the work when you require it. It's the shipping that's a constraint.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I have to, like with Josh, it was different because he's a high-end racer. Me and Audrey absorb the shipping. Okay. But for a regular guy, like if you say, Sean, I gotta have it. Well, if you want it, I could do for you, but look at our time. You're all in the East Coast. We gotta mail a 2-day air. Do you mind paying the shipping, or at least breaking it half and half for me? Then I'll do it for you.
Right.
But I mean, that, like I said, shipping is a problem. That's the only problem. I wish I had centers all around the country that we could repair it, but that would bring a new challenge also, because you got to maintain quality standards, especially now that I'm being scrutinized by Dainese and Alpine Star. If something goes wrong, they're not going to recommend me anymore, So it's a tough one. That's a tough one, but we work the best we can with people.
So here's an interesting little anecdote I'm going to get you to respond to, Greg. You speak about Josh Hayes. So in 2014, I think it was 14, because it was the year after Heron won the championship that year, and the other part of it was Josh didn't, amidst his kind of run of 4 championships, but he didn't win that year. He came back that year, and I think this was before he went to Tai Chi Leathers. He had Technic, I think, or Technique, however you pronounce that brand, that doesn't exist anymore, and was kind of with them forever. And he actually specified to them he wanted to get himself as light as possible and as good a tuck as he could get on that super bike. He actually specified a thinner mill thickness of leather, and of course, there's a risk there, not only of tearing the leather, I suppose, but I didn't know that you could specify different thicknesses of leather. So can you comment on that?
Well, these, for regular people, it is what it is. Whatever the leather is, it is. But for the high-end races, when they're getting something custom made, they could do that. But I would think that if they do that, regardless of what the customer wants, it's got to be feasible to ride. It's like, for example, going into food. You go to a restaurant, you say, I want my steak rare. The place will say, I'm not going to give it to you rare because it's too dangerous. So it's the same thing with the suit. I mean, there's only a point where I can't do what you're asking because it's not going to be protected. But I have not seen that. I mean, I've seen interesting things for custom suits that you don't normally see all the time, but they desired it and the manufacturer appeased them. But I'm assuming, like I said, it would be within realm of it being safety. I mean, you just have to say to the customer, look, there's only certain things we could do or we're going to compromise.
It's funny, Sean, because like the wetsuit that I surf in, the body is 4 millimeters thick, and then you get the arms 3 millimeters thick. But the reason you do that, you want as thick as you can possibly get because it keeps you warmer, but the arms have to be thinner because you have to paddle.
Yeah, and that's a point I wanted to say. I mean, obviously, Josh, one of the things about Josh Hayes' career, he's always been about risk management. What his risk of being injured, because it's a part of the sport. So I'm not saying that the thinner suit risked his protection in any way, shape, or form. I think he probably said that he could get same level of protection that he thought he would be able to have, but just tried to get it as thin as possible on that particular leather, and he was able to specify that. It was just an interesting anecdote about that. The other thing, Greg, So I think maybe the three of us are all of a certain age where we all understand about VCRs. And the thing I always remember about VCRs is there used to be about 100, if not more, brands of VCRs, but there were really only a few manufacturers of VCRs. Now, from what I hear, there are a few different brands of leather companies, but how many companies or how many manufacturers actually manufacture the suits? Do each of these brands make their own suits, or do these companies maybe get their suits or their leather from a handful of companies?
Yeah, I mean, like when I went to Italy, in Italy, you have in the same town, you have Dainese, Alpine Star, and Speedy. Okay, so it's funny, all the employees probably go from one place to another. I mean, they were like 15 minutes. I was driving there, and it's like 15 minutes from each other, each manufacturer. Okay, and like Dainese, they don't make the suits there. They have a third party that makes it. And I think that so they make them all probably the same people, but the specifications obviously are different. I need specifications are different Alpine Star. Okay, so yes, the same person might be working on the Dainese and the Alpine Star, but they're doing the specifications according to what they want. So yeah, I mean, Mythos same way. Mythos is made in Italy also. But then you get your cheaper brands that are made in like third world countries like Pakistan, okay, or Turkey, and those suits because they're way cheaper, and they're not that durable. So when you try to alter them and take them apart, you can't put them back together again well because they're made for one use. So
Now, do you do things with beyond leather suits? You mentioned shoe repair. Do you do alterations, repairs on riding gloves and on riding boots?
Yeah, so gloves. The alterations we do in gloves are for fingers. Okay, so they buy the gloves. It fits them well in the palm, but it's too big. So when they're pulling the throttle or something, it's just too much material. So yeah, we take in the top of the tips of the finger, okay, and our guys do a really good job. When it's done, you think you bought the gloves like that, okay. The problem is it's costly, okay. To do each finger is like $45. So if you have to do all 10 fingers, you're gonna spend $450. So most people, they think about it and they realize that, what, I only really need to do the thumb and the forefinger. I don't really need to do the other fingers because that's where my pressure points are, So we do that. For boots, okay, boots is an interesting thing because, you got your inline boots and out boots, okay? So a lot of people put on the boots, and especially Dainese, they can't, their calves are too big, okay? So the boots don't zip up. So what we've done is we could add panel to the boots to make it wider and then put the zipper back in, and it almost looks natural. You can't even tell. So we've done that before also,
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we like I said, we could do multiple alterations. Just we got to see if it makes sense financially and structurally. Like here, alteration. People come in, they want to bring it down 3 sizes because they went on a big weight loss. Okay, I'm like, okay, there's only so much we could do. Okay, because if you do it, you compromise the suit, and we're not going to do that. Yeah, it'll look good. I mean, you'll be able to wear it, but it won't function properly. Same thing with adding. I've added a guy one time 6 inches total, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. Okay, exactly. And we use yeah, but we use real leather. We use cowhide leather on that to give it integrity. Okay, but there's always repercussions. So, like for example, with that one, we added it, but now his neck is too big. Okay, because there's only so much we could do. He says, now my neck looks like I could fit 2 people in my neck. Well, I had no other choice because you want me to make it bigger in the chest. How am I going to make the neck small and the chest bigger? You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be give and take. There's got to be a point where you say, you know what? I'm sorry, it's just too much. You're asking too much. You'd have to remake the whole suit or just go buy something else bigger or smaller,
Just-
whatever.
or push away from the table a little sooner.
So Greg, regarding repairs, alterations, there is sewing involved. There's thread, there are needles, there are machines, there is hand. What do you do this stuff on a machine? Do you use like any kind of special thread? Is it Kevlar thread? Is it regular cotton thread? Is it a thicker thread than somebody uses to make a dress? Does somebody sit down in a chair with something and sew it by hand? How does all that work, and how is the decision made what to use?
Well, the good news is, since our relationship with Dainese, we have access to a lot of stuff, and they told us what machines we should be buying. Don't forget, Dainese has operations over here in Costa Mesa where they have a tailor who does the work. Okay, so the machines she has, we have. Okay, okay, we might not have one or two extras that she has, but we have the major machines we use. Each machine handles a different aspect. Okay, like one machine may handle fine stitching when you're doing logos. Okay, another machine may handle zigzag stitching. Another machine may handle the major stitching of a suit. Now, as far as thread goes, so yeah, in the regular thread we use is regular nylon thread, but because of our relationships with Dainese, we have Kevlar thread now. Okay, so we use Kevlar thread when necessary, and because of our relationship, we have different color threads that we can't get in the repair industry, like your flow red, your flow orange, flow green, flow yellow. Okay, we have all that kind of stuff now that we didn't have before. Okay, so yeah, so same thing with zippers. Okay, zippers, we have water resistant zippers. Okay, because we do a lot of work for Rosilla. Okay, they have their own brand called Ruka. Ruka uses waterproof zippers, so we have that. So there are different things we use for whatever's necessary, And
So regarding all of that you have to do, and you're talking about the leather part of it, a lot of suits, I don't think all of them do, but a lot of them have a perforated, it almost looks like a nylon or some kind of a textile liner in them. Do you also replace liners or repair liners?
If I could replace liners, I'd be rich. Nobody, I cannot find liners anywhere. So Dainese doesn't sell liners. No manufacturer sells liners. So we have from Dainese the liner material in sheets. So what we could do is we could patch it. Okay, so if it's not like a moth hit every section of it, I could patch it. Okay, I've seen some liners that were totally destroyed. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
Okay, but patching on the sleeves, they ruined it there, or your neck, or your knee, for example. I told you that guy went through his knee. You had a hole in the liner in the knee, we could patch that kind of stuff. So I have patching material, but I don't have replacement for liner, and that's what I'm looking for. I mean, there are things over time that I'm trying to find, like, for example, humps. Okay, the manufacturers don't give you humps. Okay, so I found a guy who makes suits in Pakistan. Okay, and he has humps. So I bought humps from him. So when people need humps done, I could put it on. Okay, so I got to be creative and find different aspects, because the manufacturers just don't supply everything. For example, perforated leather, like you say, that's the hardest one. Perforated leather, I don't have sheets of perforated leather. Okay, I used to have from Alpine Star, but they don't provide anymore. Okay, so that's a tough one to try to correct a problem that happened to perforated leather. And that's another thing, by the way, suits. There's a lot of the big ones don't have it, but a lot of cheaper suits, they're putting perforated leather in areas that you don't need perforated leather. And the problem is, you get an accident, it gets destroyed because it's so perforated. So I don't understand why they do that. They think that putting perforated all over is going to give you the best ventilation possible. And I think we have to go with the Dainese and Alpine Star to know where perforated should actually be. So yeah, you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, Greg, that kind of goes back to that question I had before where I was asking about the change from sewing on patches versus sublimating. And what I was getting at is every time you put a patch on or every time you run a needle into that leather, you're essentially putting a small perforation in it. And to your point about the perforations that they do for style, it's essentially tear along the dotted line. You're infecting the integrity of that hide. So as little of putting holes as possible is the right thing, right?
Well, it is, but to the point you're trying to make, the when you're doing patches, like you said, or like logos and all that, the holes are so small. Okay, case in point, people come to me with Kevlar stuff or waterproof things, and they think that if I'm going to sew something, it's going to ruin the integrity of that. The holes are so small that even if you were concerned, after we make the holes, we put some little adhesive on it to cover it. Okay, those holes are very small compared to perforated leather.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
So
exactly.
but your point is true. If you're doing it multiple times, yeah. If you see, the whole idea is when you're doing resewing, you have to do exactly in the same area before. If you're going to create a new hole, I agree with you. Yeah, you're going to make it bigger, But that's the rub. You have to do it exactly the same spot, to avoid your problem that you're saying.
Okay. So, Paul, I swear, I promise I only have 2 more questions for this podcast. We will get him on again but 2 quick rapid fire questions, Greg. You mentioned the humps. That's interesting. I always thought that the hump was kind of integral to the leather. I didn't know it was sewn on, and maybe it is sometimes. But the question is kind of like people ask us what's inside the bags in King of the Bagger. What's inside the hump? What kind of foam is that?
It's just it's regular foam. It's nothing big. In fact, I had a customer come in. You know how you got the hydration
Yeah,
things with the hump?
exactly.
Okay, so this guy came in. He wanted me to carve out the hump a little to put it in, so we carved it out. It's just regular foam. It's nothing special. It's really, you think, I thought so too. Before I got into business, I thought, wow, these humps must be plastic or something big, they're just regular freaking foam.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing big, but
yeah.
but to saying that for manufacturers, like when I'm saying I'm replacing humps, I'm doing it more like third-party suits or jackets or something. I haven't done it to Dainese Alpine Star because they have their own proprietary humps.
Right.
And if you do something like that, they may say, well, you have it from a third party. I don't know if it's going to be durable, this and that. So that's why I wish I could get their humps, because you're right. Maybe their humps have a different material, than the humps I'm getting. I don't know the answer to that.
So, yeah, and just to reiterate on that, you were talking about hydration. So for the listeners, sometimes these riders will have a Camelback or something, some kind of hydration, water or whatever during, especially endurance riders. So they'll run the tubing for that. It goes up through their hump and out and under their helmet and up into their under their helmet so they can go to their mouth so they can get hydrated. So it just kind of keeps everything a little more contained. And that's what Greg's talking about. A lot of times you'll see at the top of a hump on a rider's leathers, there's a little kind of a crosshatch thing where the tubing comes through. So just wanted to make that clear. Okay, Greg and Paul, final question from me. Okay. With this advent of these Tech Air or whatever the brand might be of airbags that a lot of these riders have, in order to allow for the expansion of that airbag when it goes off, does a suit that has an airbag have to be bigger?
So I was talking to Heath at Alpine Star when I was up in Laguna Seca, and he taught me that the amount of room you need between the airbag and the suit is the size of a golf ball. Okay. So as long as you have that room inside of the golf ball, it'll expand properly. Now, I've had suits that were bigger, okay? But if they're bigger, it'll expand, but you'll still have some gappage there. Then I've had suits where it was smaller, so when it expands, you're gonna be in pain because it's gonna expand and you're not gonna have that leverage yet. So the idea is the size of a golf ball will give you that expandability that's not gonna hurt you.
Wow.
So we take that in consideration when people are coming in saying, I want this to fit my suit. Like the Tech 10 airbag is a very big challenge now, because that airbag, have you guys seen those airbags?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they go down like bodysuits now. Okay,
Yeah.
and it brings a challenge now because there's so many things you have to alter to make it fit a suit, which I find interesting, because Alpine Star made a suit specifically for the Tech 10 airbag system, but yet they're saying you can use it for other suits as well. So I find that a little funny because they're saying that our suit is made for the Tech Air, but you could use it for other suits. How? So because I put it on a customer once that doesn't fit, his arms go all the way up his wrist because the airbag system is so thick, it's pulling the suit up.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
so like I said, to do things like that, you have to just deal with the areas where the airbag is going to implode and make sure that you have the size of a golf ball in those areas. Yeah.
And all of this conversation, of course, is for the benefit of protecting these riders when they're on track and they happen to fall down, which is part and parcel of our sport, of course. So, Greg Sermabeikian, I have worn out my welcome, but not my questions for you. I'll take it up at another time. But I do want to mention Anthony's Leatherworks is integral to MotoAmerica, and we have drop-off points at our rounds. And on Facebook, we co-host these events so that people can see that Anthony's is going to be at our rounds, so our riders can bring their leathers and have them serviced for the next round. Can a fan come over there and toss their leather suit into the pile too? Or
I get. Yeah, well, that's the whole purpose. That was the whole purpose too. It's not for races. It was for people who want to enjoy the event and also bring their suit to be repaired at the same time. Okay. I get texts all the time. Are you guys going to be at MotoAmerica? But I need to clarify that we were going to be in the tech area, but Anthony's drop off is always at the hospitality tank.
Okay, good.
Where what's his name? Why am I forgetting that guy's name?
Ron?
Nice. Yeah, Ron is in charge of that section. I can't believe I forgot his name. Yeah,
that's okay.
Ron is in charge of that section. So it's in a hospital, and we have a sandwich board that says our name too. Okay. So yeah, it's a little, for people who don't know where the hospitality tent is, it's a little more difficult to find, but it's a big tent. You can't miss it,
Yeah.
It's got all the food.
Yeah, which you're not going to get anymore because you forgot Ron's name.
Yeah, I know. I'm screwed. Next year I'm dead.
Never screw the guy that feeds you.
Well, listen, if this is not live, you could edit that section, okay?
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, he's going to. So Greg, thank you. I mean, I threw another question in there, even though I said I didn't have any more, but thank you for joining us. We're going to wrap here. We actually had a good conversation with you and learned a lot. Is there anything at all that you want to add before we put a wrap on this?
No, I just want to mention that, people have to realize that we are there, at the even though I'm not there personally, you could always drop it off. I think it's on Saturdays and Sundays between 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Okay. And, that's what they do. And then the shipping is free. So I don't have to worry about that. And, but the only thing is we do not take in alterations at the races. Okay. Because I have to, with alterations, that's what the point I wanted to make also, which you didn't go into. We do alterations from around the country. I work with people on the phone before they send me the suit. Okay. If they send me the suit before the alteration, unfortunately, it's got to go back to them. Okay. Right. So this setup at MotoAmerica has nothing to do with alterations, unless I had a conversation with them beforehand. Okay. So I want to clarify that if there is an alteration concern, they have to contact me before they drop off the suit.
Right. Okay. And speaking of that, and next in the rounds, of course, we've got 9 rounds next year plus 10 with Daytona, and the schedule's out. It's on the website. And also, I want to tell you guys that as far as I understand, the tickets for our rounds are going to go on sale a week from today, actually. On Black Friday, our tickets, we'll have provisions on our website to go on and order your tickets, camping, and anything you need. So get your plans made for the rounds you want to go to next year, and get on there next Friday and start buying your tickets for next season. And again, thanks for being on with us, Greg and Paul. I'm glad to have
Thank
you
you.
back. I can't see you, but I don't know. You probably don't have any more of a tan because you live in California, but it's good to have you back again.
All right. Thank you, guys. And Greg, it's always nice to speak with you. It's you're very knowledgeable about what you do, which is so makes it interesting. So, and one good thing about your business is people are always going to crash motorcycles, so you should be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I hate to, listen, when people come in the store, they go, oh, I hope I don't see you again. And I go, well, don't look at it as a negative thing. It's not only crashing. You want to restore the color, you want to do alteration. Don't think of it as a negative. You know, I don't want Anthony's to be negative, like you're only coming in for crashing, you know?
Right.
Good point.
Or if your heel breaks on your high heels.
There you go. Yeah. I know a lot of guys have that. The races wear a lot of high heels. Like,
Yeah, they do. They do.
All right, you guys.
Okay,
Have a good
guys.
rest of your week.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.